And thank you for taking the time to speak to us as a family, but also speak to our listeners.
Well, you are more than welcome. It's, I have gone to a lot of trouble to get the truth, but it still takes people that are willing to get it out there. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And you guys are doing great work in there. So
Well, thank you, sir.
we're talking about the great secret in education that came from Mount Sinai, right?
Mm.
And it's in Daniel, right? It's the same as in Exodus 35. He says, "I will do miracles, wonders through you, that everyone that is around you shall see." And that's what they've done, right? So what is the great secret? The people that have followed that educational concept, the word and the writing of God, that he dictated from Mount Sinai as their education. They, in all times, in all places throughout history, they've risen to the top of every profession. I mean, we kind of know this, right?
Yes, sir.
Don't we know that Jews have this wonderful
Nobel Prize.
education system? It comes from their religion. It comes from Mount Sinai, right? 20% of all Nobel Prizes worldwide go to Hebrew. Even though they're a tiny fraction of 1% of the world population, 20% of Nobel Prizes go to them. In the United States, where we have less than 2% of the population are Jewish Americans, 40% of Nobel Prizes go to Jewish Americans, right? They have received more than 4,000 Nobel Prizes. What are they? Less than 20 million people in the world? Something like that. There are billions of Arabs. You know how many Nobel Prizes they've gotten? 7.
7, it shows.
5. 7 if you count the Persians, who are not really Arabs, but right. 5 basically. So this is a comparison between them. But now we're destroying our academic system. Students are not studying as much because it's just not required of them, and they're letting all kind of students in that don't have the skills to be at Harvard because it's DUI, right? Diversity, exclusion, DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion. Yes. So all of those people out there protesting, they are Palestinian students, have been let into our system. They don't have the skills to be at Harvard, but they are the Arab countries put about $7 billion into our universities every year. So now we are raising little anti-Semites, and American children are becoming trained in anti-Semitism because of all this money, right? So the number of students who admit cheating has gone from 26% to 52%. And that's 1993. That's 30 years ago. Now it's probably near 100. Now the head of Claudine Gay, right? Was she MIT? She was knocked out of her position because she was a plagiarist. That's what they're teaching our children now. It's okay to plagiarize. So this is what we did. I decided to find out if the great secret mentioned in the scripture that happened to Daniel and his cohort, right? Remember when it's the same in Daniel 1:1 or Daniel 1:7 is the same Exodus 35. I will do miracles with you in knowledge and skill, right? Same, almost the exact same promise is in Daniel and it's in Exodus. So I decided to see if that, and you remember the king came to check on their progress and he found them 10 times better than all the wisest men in his kingdom. Do you remember this in the Bible?
Yes, sir.
You're talking about Daniel there, correct?
And Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego.
And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those are actually their Persian names. They weren't their Hebrew names. But they all were accomplishing more on the diet they had, where they had only vegetables. They were smarter as kids than all the wisest men in his kingdom. What does that sound like to you? To me, it sounds like a rhetorical flourish. Sounds good, but they can't really mean that.
They can.
Well, I decided to find out. So what I did is I am an accelerated learning specialist, and I was teaching a first grade class. And so I decided to see just how far they could go. So I taught them how to read fluently in both English and Spanish. This all happened within a year. And all the mathematics they typically would take about 3 years. 3 years they're supposed to learn how to abstract, multiply, and divide to mastery, which they never do. But then we went on to stuff they would never even be covering in grade school, like powers and roots, calculating powers and roots.
And exponents, yes, sir.
Right. So I taught all this in 1 year, and they were double promoted to third grade, from first grade to third grade. But a lot of people didn't like that. So they just took the kids in their class and flunked them back. Right.
Hmm.
Right. Well, they came to me and complained. And so we held a public exhibition of the children. And there was no cherry picking the best students to be there. All you have to do to be in my demonstrations is to show up. You know, if you've been there 2 years or you've been there 2 days, I just say, oh, this guy's been here for 2 days. This is what they can do. All right, but these kids took on. We had Mensa members there. We did it at a Mensa conference. So we asked if there's anyone with advanced degrees in the Mensa audience, and there were 3 PhDs. So we asked if they would form the team for the Mensa, and they agreed to. They were very gracious, and we gave them calculators. We gave the Mensa PhDs calculators, and they took on the kids in a contest of speed and accuracy in calculating powers and roots. Now the children had to do their math mentally. Yes, they could use paper, but if you have to be able to do most of it mentally, or you'll just lose. Because somebody only has to punch it in and hit a button.
Right.
So both sides had to write down the problem and the answer at a minimum, right? And you understand how that worked?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was the contest. And the children beat the Mensa PhDs by 14-6.
Mhm.
They were faster. The team who won the point they had to be first, and they had to be correct. So
Dr.
this
Jones,
is
when I heard that research, I told Amanda, I said, I wish Dr. Jones was my teacher when I was young. I said, I could have done so much more. This man, I said, he's got to have a gift, I says, to be able to teach this. And me and her and my little boy and my little girl's like, we're going to learn this way, ain't we? I'm like, yes, y'all are.
Which I
and
teach them some basically I've done Saxon math. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
yes,
And the Abeka curriculum, but I keep,
Saxon's a good program.
I'm sorry.
Saxon's a good program.
Yes. And I teach them the Saxon and the old style math because I grew up with Saxon and stuff. But and then in Abeka curriculum, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Sure, I'm
Because it was
familiar with just about all of them. Because I taught homeschoolers for many years. Go ahead.
so I keep switching the two because one looks like it would do a little bit better than the other one, and the other one looks like it breaks it down a little bit better for them. And so anyway, the hardest part, even for Samuel, and I've tried to come up with a way to help him, but he has still just a little bit problem in the dividing area. So anyway,
Most people do.
Yeah.
And that really is an artifact of the way you teach them. You teach them addition for the first semester, and then about spring break, you freak out. Oh, I have to teach them subtraction too. So you tack on the subtraction at the end of the year. And then the next year, you pick up multiplication and division, do the same thing. And
right.
they get good at multiplication because you spend a lot of time on it, better than they are at subtraction because you didn't spend much time on it. And of course, the worst at division, which they tack on at the end. Those are just artifacts of the way it is taught. You gave
Right.
more attention to one thing than another. There's nothing any harder about division than there is about subtraction or anything. You just have to know your basic facts. But I wanted to tell you what happened with these guys.
Okay.
Because it's kind of cool. Remember that David God gave them knowledge and skill and all learning and wisdom, the same blessing as in Exodus 35, almost word for word, right? So we know he did that. Okay, and we know what happened. The king and part of them found them 10 times better than all the wise men that were in this realm. That's in Daniel 1:20. Of course, they were called magicians, right? That's what
Right.
it's saying in the Bible. So we tried that. So the question here is, our Mensa PhDs, remember we're trying to see if the Bible stuff actually works, or is it just a rhetorical flourish? So would you consider Mensa PhDs to be a reasonable approximation of the most knowledgeable men in the realm? What do you think?
Most definitely, sir.
I do too. So when the kids went up against them, they beat them by 14-6. And whether that's 10 times better, you'll have to be the judge. But these are the problems that they did. Now, these kids were in my first grade class. And when this took place, they were in the first semester of second grade. Now, when they came to me, they didn't speak any English. This competition was done all in English. So the Henios are our team. This Honus Henios, Jones's geniuses. And so the Henios are the geniuses, and the Mensas are the
PhD.
yes, the Mensa is the high IQ society. Somebody never explained to them that Mensa in Spanish means idiot. So it was
That's terrible.
Oh my goodness, a bunch of idiots there. Okay.
well, it's really named after the Mensa, the great round table where the wise men would gather, right? But it still means idiot in Spanish.
Oh
So
my goodness.
the Henios, the geniuses, beat the idiots. Despite the fact that they were just in second grade and they didn't have the calculators, the Mensas had the calculators. So they usually beat them on these kind of problems. Like when you're taking 582, what you do is you take the third root of that, all right, and then you square it. Okay, so that's like really more than one calculation. So they usually were able to beat them on that sort of thing. But the geniuses were better than them in just about everything else. And so you can see some of these problems, 1,955,000 squared. You can be doing these, you can be doing these in your head if you'd like. So
but it tells me though, you had a technique to teach the children that more children could learn if they had this at
their facility, their
yes.
school.
Any child could do this.
Yeah.
Any adult could do this.
That's what gave me hope when I realized you could teach a first grader that. I said, Amanda, I can learn again. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. I tell my students, look, if inner city first graders can do this, I have just as much confidence in you that I do inner city first graders. I'm not sure how reassuring that is, but it's the truth. If they can do this, anybody can do this. And when we just break it down, I'll tell you what happened. It's a God thing. I was praying about these things, and I started studying. As an accelerated learning specialist, I started studying prodigies, mostly child prodigies, but not all. And what did they do to be able to do the rapid calculation that they do? And so that's where we took these techniques from. But one of the things that was so interesting about it is that sometimes they would have in their stories something that triggered them to get interested in this and start doing it. It may be, a brother who showed them how to arrange pellet shot in squares so you could do multiplication, 10 pellets and 10 pellets, 100 pellets. Or somebody stepped in and was able to kind of give them a spark. And while I was studying these, I was triggered. And all of a sudden, I was doing all this mental math in my head, because your brain is basically mathematical. And I was just all the time I was doing it. I wasn't sleeping much. And I took what I learned from that experience and I put it into a schemata that was, I simplified it enough that even first graders could use it, could do it. So Saxon math is very good, but nothing, everything that has accelerated in it generally is not. So this is really accelerated learning. Kids do in a semester, they generally do 3 to 5 times what you do in ordinary school. So a year of accelerated learning is worth about 3 to 5 years of learning in public schools, for example, or other programs. Because really, if a program is not accelerated, then it's holding you back, right? If you
Right.
never learn powers and roots in first grade, well, you're not going to have any calculation ability in them. So after they had mastered all their basic skills, I remember the triggering part for my children is I taught them mastery of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And then I taught them their first accelerated learning method, and that's how to deal with numbers that have lots of zeros in them. It's very simple. You just multiply the digits, not counting the zeros, multiply the digits, all right? And then you count up all the zeros in both your multipliers. That's how many you'll have in the answer, right? Pretty
Right.
simple. So 200 times 200, well, 2 times 2 is 4. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 zeros.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
how I
that's
taught Faith and
40,000.
Samuel.
Well, there you go. But even most they can't even teach the kids the times table, so they never get to anything. They can't teach the kids how to read, so they never get to speed reading and stuff like that. They don't know they don't know memory training, so they don't know how to do these things.
Well,
So
they
we
didn't
have
teach me that.
No, they don't. They basically don't teach it. So
No.
we've since, and our kids were from all over, they were all colors. They were Asian. They were Hispanic. They were Indian. They were everything. They were white kids. So it had nothing to do with race or socioeconomic status. It's just whether
Techniques.
it's the techniques. Yes. And obviously you have to be motivating to kids, but success is very motivating. These kids love doing math. They may have come in and they were way behind and had math phobia, but once you get into the point where they're succeeding, it often becomes their favorite subject because they can do it. It's a very simple principle.
It's a rewarding project, ain't it?
It's very rewarding. Most people, whether they're kids or adults, like doing the things they can do well, and they don't like doing the things they can't do very well. So you take the can't do it very well out of the equation, and it totally changes their attitudes toward what they're doing. So the question is that 10 times better? And you'll just have to be the judge of that. But we repeated this over and over again with all kinds of students in all kind of places, all kind of levels, and they've never been beaten by the calculator. So what we do works. And it's basically we've been our real restraint, what would you call it, or a real obstacle is that it works too well. There is what they call the social suggestive norm. Kids are not supposed to learn to read before they get out of diapers. They're not supposed to learn how to do math calculation that they'd never even be taught, even in advanced math course. They're not supposed to know that stuff. That's not normal. Okay, so you find when you're taking these kids and they're going 500% better than you're going to get, people get nervous about that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Is there
And
a
then
curriculum that you got to learn Hebrew faster?
I'm making one, creating one.
Okay. I'm signing up, then I can tell you that.
Good. And that you can learn to read Hebrew in a couple of weeks. Take you about 15 minutes a day.
I got that 15 minutes. I got 24 hours in one day. That's all I can get. So I can do 15 minutes, no problem.
Well, if you do 30, you can do it in 1 week.
Oh, well, let's do it 30 then, because here's how I look at it. Why slow down when I can succeed?
Now,
Well,
Dr.
you may
Jones,
not know all the words, but you can read them out, and a lot of words you will recognize. You're going to recognize hallelujah. You're going to recognize shalom. You're going to recognize, Yeshua, Yehovah. You'll recognize those words. So you'll be able to recognize a lot of words. So then you start adding on vocabulary. Yes, Amanda.
Do you offer, I did see on your website as we were browsing through and looking that you did have a curriculum for homeschool. So is that
Yes.
still available for children? And if it is this, the Great Sinai or the Great Secret, is that your curriculum? Is it based upon?
It's the great secret. Yes, and we do have that available. Now, generally, the website that carries the children's stuff, our website is the writing of God, but it is linked to jonesgeniuses.com.
Okay.
jonesgeniuses.com. And that's where the curriculum is. So for the children. So it's all there. And yeah, it works. It works very well. And we'd love to develop teachers, parents that want to learn this so they can teach it to others. We don't care what degrees you have. I don't care if you graduated from high school or got a PhD from Harvard. You have to learn to master everything you're asking your kids to master. That's all you have to do. That's what it takes to train people. You have to be able to do the things you're asking them to do. So you have to learn all that calculation stuff, but you'll learn it faster because your brain is more developed.
I'm gonna go over there and help her learn it then. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to be ignorant. You know what I'm saying? I like the hermeneutical, philosophical, theological X points, but at the same time, I can talk to anybody on their level, but I want to be smarter and I don't want to be ignorant.
Well, I will have to say this, where I originally had worked at, I really liked the system when I first started there. I really liked the system that they implemented. I was like, wow, why didn't I get this while I was growing up? Because we didn't get taught this way. And
yes, I hear that a lot.
Yeah. But what it was,
I wish I had been taught like this when I was a kid.
Well, what it was, they took the reading part and you would actually teach them phonetically how to say the sound, and then you would start gradually putting the sounds with words, and then they'll start learning words. And then I remember I had a group of kids myself, and we would go back there, and what we called it word attack. So we would go back there and I would point and I would have certain words up there, but it's basically, it had to be off phonetically what they remembered in their memory, and they had to quickly get the word attack just like that. And then when I printed off from your website where you said to test the students, test your children to see where they would actually place which curriculum to buy, I was like, Scott, this is the same math that I did, or similar, as far as where to place our students in math. So, and basically you would give them a certain amount of time and to see how fast they can do it, and you would count the ones that they got correct. I said, I know this, but I'm like, I wonder what the difference between that and that, because that's when I came home from to homeschool mine, I basically was taught what I was taught there because it worked. So,
yeah,
but
you might have been using my curriculum without knowing it.
I might have been.
But when you can tweak
people
it,
are learning from what worked.
it's like a race car. You can always tweak it a little bit better, and then what works. But now when you add yours on top of it, I know what the lap time on yours is. It's showing, hey, there's a lot of educated idiots out there, but a simple child can advance them if they know how to process the information. And that goes back to the Word of God. That goes back to anything. If we have got the right tools, we can be the elite. We can be the ones that is teaching.
And that's what God wants for us. He wants us to be those people that are head and shoulders above everybody else, if we've got the ability to do that. And we find that, intelligence is a wonderful thing, but I find that most all children have all the intelligence they need to be as successful as they want to be in just about anything they want to do.
They can.
That's the truth.
That's if we allow them to do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If they're taught well, they can go on and be greatly successful at math, languages, reading, speed reading. So we teach memory training, we teach speed reading. All these things are integrated into the curriculum.
Right.
So you're going to get them. You don't say, no, I don't want to do the speed reading. No, it's all in the curriculum. The memory
And that's
training,
what-
it's in the program.
And that's what we did with our students. I wish I don't have a book in front. I wish I could remember the name of it. But anyway, they would teach them. We would teach all the words, and then it will be short little sentences. And then when they reached a certain lesson level, then you would call them up to your desk after 1 week of reading. You would call them up, and they would have to do a speed read. And so that
Well, we have a primer for learning to read, which is the best. We have a program that's really the best in the world. And it will teach kids as soon as the cerebral cortex comes online, which is usually about 2, it can come on earlier. That's when they're capable of understanding symbols, and language is simple, right? So at that point, they're capable of learning the symbols involved in the letters and the sounds and the numbers and the quantities. Now what you have to do is you have to use very big letters and very big numbers, because their visual acuity is not developed enough to read small print. Right. So if you start out with big letters and big numbers, they learn it. And, we have kids that are reading 2nd grade material still in diapers. And it's like, it's pretty amazing. I really didn't expect all that.
No, that's amazing. So we talked about it. So we're going to.
We're on board with Dr. Jones. I know Indiana Jones, he found a lot of things, but what you got, I told Amanda the other day, I says, they should have put Dr. Jones to replace what the other one was searching for, because he's got some information that is mind blowing.
They changed the names in the movie to protect guilty. Right? I thought Harrison Ford did an excellent job. You remember?
Yes, sir.
He was called Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones.
Oh my goodness.
I want to thank you, and I'll be happy to come back anytime and talk with you. So.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Jones,
if anybody wants more information, writingofgod.com and Jones's Geniuses for the curriculum. And so we'd just be happy to, we like to give away things. So you can go on Writing of God and get a free download, like on the name of God or other things. So, we like to give you stuff that you can keep advancing in your knowledge, and give you the revelation of the month. That's been very popular, and it allows us to keep the doors open, the Institute. So,
well, I thank you so much, because truly our family would not be where we're at today without the information that God has allowed you to research and to study and to hand it back to us.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us with Real Talk with
The
the
Cumbees.
Cumbee.